Hey guys, my name is Alex. For those of you don't who do not know me, and today I'm the one bringing the devotional. So let's get into it. First, I wanted to talk about, we're such in these crazy times that honestly it feels like we have all the time in the world, but are we like really taking advantage of that? Are we really sacrificing time? And in this video, I just want to provoke you guys to think about what you may be doing throughout your day, and if you're like making time for God or you're saying you have time, because those are two completely different things. Saying you have time is different than saying you're gonna make time, and God wants to see the intention behind what you're gonna do. And I found a passage in the Bible that really spoke to me in that way. I was like going to the living room to get some water, and on the TV I heard some preaching about how it's just a snippet, and I was like, what is it gonna cost you? And that really like touched my heart. I'm like, I want to find out more about it. So I went on later and looked at the video, and it was talking about this passage, and the preacher was like just touching themes on what we can do during this time and what other people in the Bible have done in times where there was a plague or they were stuck in a situation where people relied on something rather than God. And that really opened up my eyes in all of this situation. Um, so we'll get started. So the passage that I'm going to read, I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to read a key verses that talk about all of this. But if you guys want to go look at it, it's very interesting. It talks about plagues. It talks about David and interesting realization that he had. Like it just talks about how he had a reliance on manpower because he was trying to. God told him to count all the people in his army, and they did. But then David like broke down, and he realized that like why is he doing that? Like why is he relying on the army when he has the most powerful person in the world on his side? So if you guys want to read 2nd of Samuel chapter 24, and before that, even to understand what's been going on in this time, I suggest that you guys do that. But let's just get into it. So I'm just gonna read from 2nd of Samuel chapter 24, verse 18, and then until the end. And the subheading in this says David builds an altar. On that day Gad went to David and said to him, "Go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite." So David went up as the Lord had commanded through Gad. When Araunah looked and saw the king and his men coming toward him, he went out and bowed down before the king with his face to the ground. Araunah said, "Why has my lord the king come to his servant?" "To buy your threshing floor," David answered, "so I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague on the people may be stopped." Araunah said to David, "Let my lord the king take whatever pleases him and offer it up. Here are oxen for the burnt offering, and here are threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. O king, Araunah gives all this to the king." Araunah also said to him, "May the Lord your God accept you." But the king, David, replied to Araunah, and this is the key verse that I heard. It's verse 24. "No, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing." So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen and paid 50 shekels of silver for them. David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Lord answered prayer in behalf of the land, and the plague on Israel was stopped. So I guess that's kind of similar to what we've been experiencing today. This not really I guess it is some sort of a plague, but I want to direct our attention elsewhere into where David was talking about how he does not want to give something to the Lord that cost him nothing, and that's where the theme that came, like, are we gonna make time, or do we say that we might have time later on in our day? because like personally I feel that we have so much time, like, and I guess you hear it often, like, this is the time to spend with your family, this is the time to get closer to God. But I want to go deeper and like think about what our intentions in those times that we want to seek God. Are they times where we're like, oh yeah, let me do this first, and then later on, if I have time, I'll read the Bible or I'll practice my instrument or whatever, you know? Or you're gonna like, no, I'm gonna make time later. Like it's scheduled time for this time. And I guess they're kind of similar, but when you have the intention that you're gonna make time, you're telling God that, God, this time is for you. It's not like if I have time. I feel like that's a very big and like distinction, and it's not only to make ourselves feel good, but ultimately it's about getting to know what God wants from us, and it honestly makes you realize like, yeah, like am I making time, or am I saying that, am I telling God, hold on, I got other things to do, when literally we have the whole day to do whatever we need to do. And that applies to me too. I'm not perfect. I'm just saying that, I also have to practice this, because I guess there's like this certain feeling that we just get lazy. And honestly, when I go back to church, like I know it's gonna be like some different. It's gonna be a service like that we've never experienced before, and I don't want to feel like the same as I was when I come back, to church. And by not reading the Bible, by not praying, by not making time, I know it's not gonna happen. I might, yeah, like in the moment type of thing, but it would only be emotional. But I want this to be spiritual, and I feel like God is like, preparing us for this. But we gotta sacrifice things that cost us, that we make time for, that we set aside other things, like being on our phone all day, and like, no, like I'm gonna make this time. And whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever, when you have the right intention, that's what God looks at. When you're doing it with a happy and content heart, with that disposition to be like, God, this is for you and only for you. And I'm not doing this out of my own volition to make myself feel better, so I can like be a true Christian and keep that identity. No, this is like about your relationship with God, and that's where this just caught my whole attention. So when we approach a situation like this pandemic, are we gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna wake up and do what I need to do, or we're gonna be like David and really say like, I'm gonna do something that's gonna cost me, because I don't want to give something to God that didn't cost me. Like I don't know how else to explain that. Like, and it's different for each and one of us, because I mean we all have different lives, we all have different priorities, but it's like, when you see things around you that cost you time, effort, money, you know how it feels. And it would be nice that if we start practicing things, sacrifices to God that make us feel like, wow, that actually cost me effort, and I know that God saw that with a content heart, and He's like proud of me. And each and every one, our relationship with God is a little different, especially in this time. Maybe you didn't get closer to God, you actually got farther away because you decided to focus on yourself and what you can do to keep yourself busy. But instead, let's keep ourselves busy with God. That's honestly the best thing we can do, and not just for us, but for the people that we're with every day during this quarantine, the people in our house. You know, like David did, he built an altar to ask for forgiveness so that God can stop this plague, that was going all over Israel, not just his family, but all over Israel. And this time, like, I ask that you guys and I myself, build a altar of forgiveness to God, for what we've done and what we could do better. I feel like that's really important, to say that after we did something that to honor God, we can be like, wow, that cost me, but it's all worth it because I'm only growing my relationship with God even more. And I'm just getting closer to him, and it feels good. And I know, like, the 3D youth, we had a call the other day, and there were some youth that were like that they're not engaging as much as they feel like they should, and that's where it comes in, like sacrificing that emotion of like laziness or like pride and or whatever it is that just keeping you away from God. It's just important that we, you know, just put that aside and just get closer to God. And it's easier said than done, honestly. Like, some people get bored reading their Bibles, but little steps like, you know, doing a Bible study, keep hitting up other people, like how they've been, how have their relationship with God have been, like that all can make a difference. And but when you do it with the right intention, it just makes everything much better. So I just ask that, to close this out. I know it got a little long, but um, you know, just what are we doing that's costing us um, all this time that we have? Because usually, when we were discussing sacrificing, like before all of this, I guess we really didn't have time because people were working, people were busy, other things to do. But now that it seems like we have so much time, how do we sacrifice? How do we sacrifice something that's cost us a lot? Um, how are our sacrifices now different than the ones from before all of this happened? You know, and it just applies to each individual, and they'll know. Um, and yeah, I just hope that you guys learn something from this. Read 2 Samuel chapter 24 and before that to understand about the plague that was over Israel and why David had a realization and broke down and angered God. It's very interesting, and I just hope that, like David, we can sacrifice things that cost us and not say we have time, but make time for God. So I just hope you guys enjoy this video and tune in to Friday. I don't know who's preaching, but I hope you enjoy the video and see you guys.